This is PS2 in review. Today we'll be looking at Superman Shadow of Apokolips, developed by Infogrames' Sheffield House and published by Infogrames under their Atari label. It was released for the PlayStation 2 in North America on September 24th, 2002, and for the Nintendo GameCube on March 26th, 2003. Today we'll be discussing the PS2 version, both the box the game came in, and the game itself. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, first off, let's take a look at the game itself. So, first things first, you've got your really cool looking box art here. Really calls to mind the sort of Bruce Timm style animation from Superman the Animated Series. I don't think this is Bruce Timm drawing it personally. That musculature isn't angular enough. He's usually like, a lot of his characters kind of come to points, especially in their hands. They kind of look like this. And that chin's just a little bit too pointed out. But regardless, it sort of gives you that kind of preview of the sort of three-dimensional look that this game's going to go for. Speaking of which, some of the visuals here in the back, you got some screenshots. Lots of really neat screenshots. A lot of games don't do this as much as this game does. And you got some really nice comic book style sort of speech bubbles there in the back telling you about features of the game. Spine also looks really neat. You got that sort of red and yellow look with a little Superman at the bottom. I think it looks really cool. On the inside, you've got your disc and your manual, both just kind of copying the front cover artwork. Let's take a look at the manual here real quick. It's going to come out. It's got your little ad on the back for Splashdown, another Atari game. This manual is just okay in my mind. It's got this nice sunset there in the background. It does, tell you the basic things you need. It's got the credits in here. It's got a note section if you're getting stuck and you need to write something down. It's also does not include the details about the shield collectibles, which are something you can very easily miss if you're playing through the game normally. All they unlock is cheats, but if you're someone who goes for cheats, if you're someone who really goes for that kind of thing, that could kind of feel like a missed opportunity. So, that being said, let's take a look at the game. Part 1. Tutorials and basic controls. As the game begins, we are treated to a brief cutscene of the villain Darkseid brooding and scheming with his minion Kanto. In an unrelated street fight, Superman punches the villain Metallo, and we get one of the funniest edits I've seen in a long time.
That was the final moment of the dramatic battle last night between the Man of Steel and the cyborg criminal Metallo.
We then cut to gameplay, where we are swiftly met with the flying controls. Now, it's safe to say that this is not the world's most intuitive flying system. In order to fly vertically, you tilt the right stick up or down. If you would like to fly horizontally, you must hold down R2, at which point movement controls become inverted. While holding down R2 to fly, you can perform the speeding bullet attack by simultaneously pressing square and cross. If you wish to perform multiple speeding bullet moves in quick succession, you must let go of R2, press and hold it again, and then press square and cross. If you simply continue holding down R2, the game will not register that input and perform a ground pound attack. This is incredibly frustrating, especially if your goal is to deal damage to a flying opponent. It's also worth pointing out that square does not do anything by itself and only functions when performing these special moves. Button mapping could have made flying combat significantly smoother, but as it stands, it's a bit of a janky mess. This jankiness extends to the basic picking up and moving around of objects. In order for Superman to pick up a box, a pipe, or a car, he must be facing it at precisely the right angle. But the game's controls are less than graceful, and I often found myself reorienting Superman in a desperate attempt to just pick up a box. Sometimes the game detected my ineptitude and moved Superman for me, but most of the time I had to try again. Once positioned, you can press and hold the cross button to put the item down, or double tap cross to throw it. Now, normally, I'm all for giving your inputs multiple functions, making them a versatile verb, to use the technical term, but when square doesn't even do anything on its own, this just feels like a poor use of available buttons. While you are doing your best to learn the controls, you are treated to the game's greatest success, the 3D rendered version of Superman the Animated Series' Art Deco Metropolis. This open-world section is a treat for any DC Animated Universe fan, and this is probably the best part of the game. The whole level is essentially violence-free and runs like a dream. Future large outdoor areas, however, put a lot of stress on the PS2 and often drop frames, especially once combat begins. While later areas don't hold it very well under scrutiny, this opening is great, and I'm glad it exists. Part 2. Stories are for birds and planes. After we get done flying around Metropolis, the game's story kicks off. The villain Darkseid from the planet Apokolips is secretly supplying noted evil billionaire Lex Luthor with alien weapons, with the aim of killing Superman. Superman spends most of his time trying to fight robots built by Lex and save the scientists Lex kidnapped in an effort to understand Darkseid's technology. The introductory cutscene sets all of this up quite nicely, but nothing is done to expand on this premise. What you see is what you get, and what you get is a script mostly made up of corny one-liners and characters with no real personality. Now, a licensed game from 2002 being poorly written isn't exactly shocking, but when the back of your box promises 40 minutes of animated cinematic sequences, it does make me hope for more. On a performance level, the game is also something of a disappointment. Tim Daly is normally an excellent Superman, and Dana Delaney is normally my favorite Lois Lane. But this...
Let's take a look inside, but stick to the plan, Lois. We don't want to be discovered.
When have you ever known me to ruin a perfectly good plan?
Is neither of their best work. This problem does not extend to most of the villains, however. Kevin Michael Richardson does great work as Darkseid, taking over for Michael Ironside, who voiced him in the animated series. Clancy Brown is, as ever, a fantastic Lex Luthor, and Malcolm McDowell does an excellent job as Metallo. Unfortunately, even these actors are undercut by the robotic staging of cutscenes and sometimes awful animations. The particular victim of the latter is Livewire, who makes this horrifying face right before her boss fight. Overall, the narrative portions of the game are not offensive, but they don't add anything particularly interesting to the gameplay itself. Part 3. Combat, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the ground pound. Speaking of gameplay, let's talk about encounter design. There are essentially 3 types of encounters in Shadow of Apokolips, but the main 2 are moving an object from point A to point B and combat. First of all, box-based escort missions aren't usually riveting as much as they are frustrating. Most of these types of encounters are accompanied by a timer represented by red dots around your minimap. Paired with the janky controls, this makes these encounters exceedingly frustrating. The level Reactor Meltdown had me run out of time 5 times before I finally beat it, more than any other section in the game by a mile. Side note, this little comment Superman makes,
The flames are melting the coolant.
Makes no sense. Coolant doesn't melt, Superman. It's a liquid. The second type of encounter, combat, shows more promise, but quickly becomes very easy once you experiment even a little bit with Superman's powers. Superman can perform basic melee attacks with cross and shoot heat vision by holding or tapping triangle. He can also perform certain contextual special moves by pressing square and cross at the same time. This is the speeding bullet move we were talking about earlier. Very quickly, it becomes clear that basic melee attacks are worthless. I all but stopped using them very early. Most of my time was spent using the Heat Vision Blast or the Ground Pound move. Heat Blast, as the manual calls it, disables most enemies in 1 or 2 hits. The one exception to this is vehicles, who can be swiftly handled by spamming the Ground Pound or speeding bullet moves. Once you are aware of these 2 tactics, combat is essentially over for you. You will have more game to play, but you will know how all future encounters will go. This even goes for boss fights, the third type of encounter that, with 2 exceptions, are saved entirely for the last 4 chapters of the game, each taking up the entire chapter. The first 2 bosses are largely unremarkable. The Intergang robot leader is just a basic enemy with a health bar, and Darkseid's minion Kanto is just a tank with a health bar. The real show starts with the level Guilty is Charged, where you fight Livewire and encounter this horrible face again. Yes, I am showing it to you again on purpose. If I had to look at it, you do too. Livewire is pretty tough, but mostly due to this actually being a team-up fight where she is assisted by the camera, particularly in the 3rd phase. She is a pun queen, though, and I love that for her.
You're about to face real criminal charges. If I were you, I'd make a bolt for it. Will it be cash, check, or charge?
Superman also tries to make a few puns back at Livewire.
All right, Livewire, show's over. Time to turn out the lights.
Oh my god. Second on the list is Parasite, who is the most novel of the 3 fights. Because of his ability to absorb Superman's powers, he regenerates health if you don't keep the pressure up. Oddly, Parasite's regenerating health does not mean he is absorbing Superman's health or energy. Not taking the opportunity to have Parasite do the one thing he is specifically known for feels like a missed opportunity to add more character to this fight. Lastly, and taking up 2 levels, is Metallo. As fights go, it's pretty unremarkable, but Malcolm McDowell's performance makes this fight much more enjoyable than it otherwise should be. What can I say? Shooting lasers at the guy from A Clockwork Orange is very cathartic. Metallo has 2 moves worth worrying about, throwing cars and his grapple move. both of which are easily dodged. Once you figure out Metallo's patterns, the fight becomes more of a test of endurance. After 2 levels and 3 total phases, I was ready for this fight to be done. I also was not clear on why we were fighting Metallo as a final boss. He seemed unrelated to Lex and Darkseid's plan to kill Superman. Speaking of Darkseid, I do think it's a huge missed opportunity not to have him as a boss. His planet is in the name of the game, he's theoretically behind everything, and he just stands there looking vaguely irritated the whole game. Overall, the bosses were a mixed bag. At times, creative and interesting, boring and repetitive at other times. That's about what I think of the game as a whole. It has its moments, but overall lacks the same creativity and verve that made the animated series come alive. Its lackluster story and combat are compensated for slightly by its solid visuals, but the whole is not greater than the sum of its parts. It's worth giving a try as one of the only decent Superman games ever made, and it does come in a pretty cool package. But if you aren't a fan, I think it's okay to skip this one. But what did you think of Superman Shadow of Apokolips? Did you play it when it came out, or did you discover it recently like I did? Let me know in the comments, and stay tuned for more PS2 in review.